Peace to the righteous. I wanted to share something, one of my empowerment thoughts that really has to deal with our ability to change the politics that impact us. Surprise. I talk about that all the time. In Arkansas or Arizona, there was recently a decision where they made it illegal to videotape or to record police officers doing an arrest, and you have to be over 8 feet. So if you're under 8 feet, 8 feet or under, and you're recording an arrest by police officers, that's now illegal, and you can be arrested for that. Now, I would dare say, if it wasn't for some of the videos that happened with, ancestor George Floyd, some of the police video from ancestor Breonna Taylor, Tina Jefferson, we could just name them. A lot of these situations where we've been able to get some level of justice from our injustice system has come because we had the evidence, we had the video evidence, we had the photo evidence, right? Which is interesting because when our police officers, thanks to those who are serving that capacity, and you need to be stronger in exhuming the devils in your ranks than we are. But I know it's not going to happen. One of the things that the judicial system uses when it punishes somebody is evidence. And now in Arizona or Arkansas, they're preventing us from gathering evidence, data, evidence. They're preventing that. Here's the empowerment thought. This really gives a great exercise and opportunity for those of us in that area, Arkansas or Arizona, one of those states, to compel the elected officials and governmental officials in that area to change that amendment, to change that ruling. See, the fact that somebody could make that amendment or ruling, also means that somebody can change it. And old heads, this is, Jason Black says you can't trust them old N-words. I kind of agree with that, even though I don't use the word. Our elders, our civil rights soldiers, particularly, have a consciousness where they can't imagine that they can really impact the judicial system. Because this is back in the day when, our civil rights soldiers kind of grew up during the time when it was okay and it was expected for the law enforcement officers to use their discretion and harm people. And there was nothing that could be done about it. But those days have changed. And it's in our new consciousness, our new awareness, our new ability where we're able to make some changes. And the old heads are just not going to get it. The old heads, and I'm actually an old head, the old heads are just not going to get it. It's not going to make sense to them that we are able to say, hey, police officers should be able to treat us differently. And we can force them to. We pay for their services, So, to those in Arkansas or Arizona, wherever that place is, compel the elected and governmental officials that represent you to change this. And that compulsion can come by writing letters to the newspaper editors. It can come through social media compulsion. It can come from showing up at the city council and the school board meetings and the other meetings and the events where the mayor speaks with signage. It can come in the form of economic withdrawal with certain businesses that are associated with those elected officials. There are a lot of strategies that can be employed to change this decision. Because the same way it was put in place is the same way it can be taken out of place. So, hey, it's my prayer, it's my ashe to those in Arizona or Arkansas. Should have done, I can't remember, crazy. To use your ashe, use your amen, use your power to change that policy so that it supports you rather than disempowers you. Now, unfortunately, most of the people who voted on that policy are quote unquote my Republican family, our conservative family. That's unfortunate, but that's also expected. Hey, look, neither the Dems or the Repubs have really done anything to protect us. They're all about party. So I'm not surprised that it was majority Republicans who voted on this decision to make it illegal to videotape, to record police officer interactions within 8 feet. Not surprised. But in the same way that decision was rendered, it can be overturned. The Supreme Court recently overturned Roe versus Wade, right? The same way it was decided before, it can be overturned. So, to those in Arkansas or Arizona, wherever this is taking place, hey, my ashe, my prayer, my thoughts, my interest to work with you is to guide you to use your ability to compel the elected officials and governmental officials to make changes. And back to the old heads. Like I said, Jason Black says you can't trust them old N-words. The old heads have a different mentality. So I was listening to an old head speak. My wife and I were driving yesterday, and we listened to a podcast from an old head, and he was saying, because of this situation, this is the main reason we need to rally up our troops and register to vote and vote. While I'm not demeaning the necessity or the ability to make political impulsion with your votes, people in power can make a phone call and say, I'm dissatisfied with this particular policy, it needs to be changed. And the elected officials that represent them will stand up, make amendments. They'll make changes. They make a phone call. They're not registering people to vote. They're not waiting till November or whenever to vote to make changes. They make a phone call. They show up at their offices. They use their ability to compel the elected and governmental officials. We need to stop thinking that voting is the start or the finish, or voting is the answer. Voting is one of the tools in a toolbox. If we had a toolbox called political power, voting would be like the screwdriver. You use a screwdriver when you need a screwdriver, but sometimes you need a drill. Sometimes you need a power drill, like Professor Black Truth says. Sometimes you need a hammer. Sometimes you need pliers. We have a bigger ability than just voting. And whenever we jump to that as our first solution, we place ourselves in a position where we can only fix some of the problems. So, increase your political powered toolkit. Increase your political empowerment tool belt. Put more tools on it. And those in Arkansas or Arizona, force those devils to change this devilish decision. I'm not against police officers. I'm thankful for those who serve in that capacity. And it's unfortunate that the bureaucracy and the politics and the procedures and policies of the police department will prevent most police officers who are employed from doing something to rid themselves of the devils that are within them. And they can't speak out on it. Many of them, once they do speak out or try to do something, they get reprimanded. And there are many examples of officers getting reprimanded because they tried to stand up for the citizens, the very citizens that they're supposed to protect and serve. So, we can't depend on our officers to change themselves. We can't depend on our elected officials to work in our interests. We can't depend on anybody but us. We have no political friends, but we do have political interests, and we do have political power. So be ye empowered. Peace and prosperity.